Hello, Pao, good morning. Yes, so my colleagues and I are here today to present our transition project, which is challenges and strategies for supporting language students at Cardiff University. So I will briefly introduce the project team and then how the project came about. And then we will talk about the student characteristics in the School of Modern Languages, and we talk about understanding the views of the teachers, of the lecturers, and the students. So two key issues were identified about independent learning and independent social skills. And then Theresa will then finish with the way forward. So the project team, who are we? So we are a team of lecturers from different languages. Theresa, the project lead, is a lecturer in Italian. Samia and I, Nadia, by the way, are lecturers in French. And Marion, who cannot be here today, is a lecturer of German. We've got two lovely interns who completed an internship with us, undergraduate students who completed an internship with us during the summer, Sophie and Anna. But you will see that their work did not stop there. So how did this project come about? So the research was commissioned by the School of Modern Languages in June 2023 to explore the challenges faced by students and to develop a strategy to really help them. So it was set up in two phases. So phase one, which was completed, was to gather the data. And phase two, which we are now in, is really to think of and develop a plan for the way forward. So what are the aims of the project? Sorry, I've got the light coming on my notes. So the aim of the project is really to better understand how to support the students in transition to university. And it was important also to see what the students and the staff and the people who are preparing the students during A-level felt were to be key areas where the support was needed. And also, one of the aim, and what we are doing now, is to suggest an action plan with targeted areas of support for M-Lang undergraduates from school to graduation, because transition is not for up to the first year, it's a second year for us, it's a year abroad and a final year. So, data analysis, to gain a full pictures of students' needs, we work on student progression, retention, and in terms of studies for over a five-year period. So, comparing with the data allowed us to build a strong profile of the students' profile journey with us. So, the results from the questionnaires have been crucial to understanding how students felt about the transition process. So, before arriving, so because we see, I've worked with recruitment before, and we saw, they were so enthusiastic on year abroad, when they come during their A-level. They want to go abroad, they want to study languages, and we will see that. So I will now hand it to Theresa. We will talk about the quantitative data.
Thank you, Nadia. To understand the student characteristics, we worked with data analysts from faculty who provided us with pre-anonymised data. So we weren't actually working with individuals, we were working already with the statistics. Across, as Nadia said, from the 5-year and cross-referencing to multiple contextual markers, we looked at the information that comes through on UCAS. So we were provided with the academic information according to what students came to us with, demographic information, so fee status, domicile, or quintile, and also personal information about the contextual markers. And what we were able to do was look at this data, cross-reference this data, and build up a profile. I will say some of the things that I'm going to show an example from each of these academic, personal, and demographic information. These might feel self-evident. You might think, well, of course, that particular group of students are more at risk. But what we've done through this project is we've been able to say, no, it's not a feeling, it's a fact. We can show you that over a 5-year period, these particular groups of students are more vulnerable. So in this slide you can see academic information. This is students who come with higher A-levels are more likely to progress. As I said, it feels a bit self-evident, but what we've got here is clear information. The code here, these are the students who met their conditional offer. We can see students who came to us through clearing. Right? We have a huge difference in retention, and we have a 10% withdrawal in the first year. The other marker that you can see for personal information that I've shared here is outcomes by young and mature. And of course, for university, mature means 21 or over. And what we can see is our mature student population are incredibly vulnerable, particularly within the first year within transitioning to higher education. So this isn't just a feeling anymore, this is now a fact. We can prove this with the data that we've analysed. The third set of data that I'm going to show you is the polar 4 quintile data. So we can see very clearly that the majority of our students are coming through from quintile 5, which is the postcode areas that have the highest rates of progression to higher education. We can also see from our data longitudinally that we do have a consistent and regular amount of students coming through from quintiles 1 and 2. But we can also see that these are our students who are more vulnerable in the first year and who are much less likely to progress. So we have this set of data, but it's incredibly important to look at it contextually and to look at it intersectionally. So we know that actually the student who's come through from a polar 4 quintile 1 won't necessarily only be in that category. They may be in other categories of contextual markers. And so we can't just say, well, here's a strategy for polar quintile 1 or here's a strategy for mature students. We have to, and we're obliged to think about our strategies for transition in an inclusive and accessible way. What we can say from our overall data is, and this I'm going to come back to a bit later, progression rates are lowest for students in domiciled in Wales. We know that our higher polar 4 quintiles are more likely to progress. Our student body in modern languages lacks ethnic diversity. We know that mature students, male students, students with declared disabilities, students with contextual flags, students whose parents haven't been to university, and students who are carers are less likely to progress. We've got facts and figures to show this with our data. What I could then do with the data was to look at national data, UK national data, and to map it to the risk descriptions from the Office for Students. The ones that I haven't greyed out are the ones that we are mapping to. So what we can see absolutely clearly is that we map to UK trends. And this was confirmed also through the quantitative data, through questionnaires and discussions with students, staff and schools. So we know that the risk of withdrawal is not institution specific. We know that the risk of withdrawal from study is not specific to a discipline. Our data does match with national trends. So I'm hoping that days like today and events like this are not just useful for a single discipline, but useful for the whole sector. It's going to be worth focusing just for a moment on the Welsh context. Our data is in line with HESA and MEDA HEFCI data that there are fewer students domiciled in Wales going into higher education. Our student demographic over 5 years was 80% English. We're also able to show that students in Wales are much less likely to go to language degrees. So these additional factors do create something that becomes discipline specific, becomes increasingly important for us in modern languages to be at the forefront of understanding and supporting students inclusively in transition to higher education. The recent British Council Language Trends Wales report did discuss this difference and this difficulty, and it's important to note in what looks like doom and gloom that the collaboration that's already going on through colleges, schools, primary schools is working really, really well, that there is this great collaboration already going on to encourage students to learn languages. I'm going to hand over now to Samia and Nadia, who are going to talk through some of the key issues of the quantitative data.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Theresa. Good morning, everyone. So for our qualitative data, we use questionnaires and a workshop. So we sent 2 questionnaires to our students in Memlang at 2 occasions, one in the first semester, one in the second semester. We also organized a workshop in November 2024 to facilitate conversation and reflection, and it was led by our lovely interns. We circulated a questionnaire to our colleagues in Memlang and also sent a questionnaire to schools and sixth form colleges. We collected feedback around 4 key themes: the perception of preparedness, aptitude, engagement, and support during the transition to university life and learning. So if we look at the first area, it's about preparedness for university life, in particular understanding independent learning. And data has revealed that many students lacked clarity about actually what independent learning entails in higher education. It involved for them moving towards a more self-directed research, intellectual autonomy, and proactive resource use. And this transition to this style of learning was very challenging for some students. When it comes to the second area about their aptitude, the students shared their concerns before starting university, which included time management, assessment, and they also highlighted challenges in balancing between academic and social commitments. So this transition is a steep learning curve, but many students identify it as a necessary phase for growth. For engagement, as you know, engagement plays a critical role in fostering a sense of belonging. The programs like Roots into Languages Kimmery, MLF mentoring, and events organized by our recruitment and admission team were praised by students. They also appreciated peer support, and we'd like to see more between year peer support and mentoring without Memlang. For example, when we organized year 2 going abroad, they find it very useful to be able to discuss year abroad with final year. Then when it comes to the support, so the students acknowledge, they know, they are aware that there's some support put in place for them. However, when they face mental health issues, they will ask or they will seek help from first and often from friends and family and approach university services after. So this transition poses significant challenges, and as evidenced by student feedback, staff perceptions, and the comparative views of sixth form teachers. So our questionnaires revealed a noticeable gap between student theoretical understanding of what is independent learning and the practical preparedness for it. So if we look at this graph, while most of the students acknowledge the importance of independent study at university, nearly, let me look, see, so the majority are aware, okay, that independent study is important. Nearly half of them felt unprepared for the reality of this shift. Okay, so this distinction between learning about independence in theory during school or colleges and putting it into practice at university emerged as a key challenge. So we know from the school and sixth form college responses that schools and colleges do introduce some notion of independent learning, time management, and life skills needed in university. But these introductions take place in the safe, known environment of the school. Okay, and so there will be a difference when students move from this learning in theory to engaging directly with the kind of independent learning required at university. So we can, from the data we gathered from the MLong staff, we see this difference can be seen in the MLong staff data, as you can see, where colleagues observed that students often struggled to translate these guided experiences into self-directed, resource-driven approach required at university. So independent learning, it's a recurring challenge and requires a significant adjustment for students. So in conclusion, I would say that the transition from school-guided learning to university independence is a multifaceted challenge. By addressing these gaps in preparedness, fostering collaboration and offering support, we can help students navigate this transition with greater confidence and success. And now I will hand over to my colleague Nadia, who will discuss life skills in HE. Thank you.
Thank you, Samia. Thank you, Samia. So I will now continue with another important milestone in university, which is life experience and life skills. So when we ask schools and colleges about whether they talk to students about life skills required for the transition to university, they were confident in the questionnaires. Teachers were confident that they covered them with their students. However, this does not reflect the answers we have from MLang lecturers in the first year. So if you look at the management time effectively, so the schools, over 96% said they covered it for them. However, 74% said they had some ability. In that section, there is a not able and not at all able, as you can see. Okay, so it shows that there is a discrepancy with what the schools believe they've done to prepare their students, and then when they come here, how we feel with them. That is quite interesting. So this slide now will show students' expectations. So what students what are their expectations and the reason to come to university, for us to study a language? So one of what ranks very high is obviously improving their language skills, but also the year abroad, making new friends and living away from home. So this was the same for the questionnaires, same answers on the questionnaires and on the workshop. This one is really a thought-provoking style, because you will see that what was one of their crucial reasons to come to university suddenly become their biggest concern. Okay, 21%. So the highest concern with 21% ranking it first choice. However, for the students who didn't rank it first choice, it was still very high. So that I previously mentioned. So that it shows that. So this could be argued that the biggest transition when coming to university, that students are vulnerable, and they become vulnerable during those first few weeks. So it is important to target that very early in the thing. Making new friends, also, it's quite high, in the answers of their concerns, which means it shows again that they want to fit in. It is important. They might have their friends from in school, at home. However, it is very important to be part of a new group, of a new culture. So, very interestingly, it's if you look at the section on time management. Something I wanted to say is, if you look at when we asked them about how they went about seeking guidance, so overwhelmingly the students said, look on Learning Central. So it seemed that what we're doing a welcome week, telling the students what to do, where to find information, is working. And also, many students talk about talking to their family and friends at home, which means, again, they are still keeping contact with their previous friends, and which might prevent them from being isolated at the beginning. So, so now when we compare the questionnaires, there was two sets of questionnaires, one in autumn, one in spring, and you will see that it's interesting to see the differences in the concerns. So, living away from home, which was only 6 in the beginning of the semester, which means they're very excited, they just started university, come in the spring semester, they're feeling homesick. They're feeling, now it's catching up with them, they're in university, it's a different ball game, it's different, and they're feeling homesick. Or on the other hand, if you look at the section on making new friends, which was 4th in the autumn semester, comes down to 7th, which means it's not priority for them anymore. They've already made friends, they're already part of the group, so it does work. It's not all negative. Unsurprisingly, on free text comment, there were also comments, as Samia mentioned, on mental health. It is worth mentioning that the year abroad and lectures and seminars stay in the same position throughout the whole year. So I will now talk about academic confidence, which is quite a significant difference between the two questionnaires, as you will see. 40% of the students in the first semester feel confident about their exams, and 50%. So it's still not a good group. It's still not a big percentage. However, it's improved. So maybe, on a second semester, most of the exams I know in MLang happens in a second semester for dual semester modules. So maybe they've already had more guidance. They've talked more to their lecturers. So they feel a bit less stressed about exams. And it is nonetheless quite sad if we look at the section on speaking in the language studying. 70% were not confident in the first semester at speaking in the studied language, and this figure only slightly goes down on the second semester to 66%. So we need a way to restore confidence in them practicing and talking the language. I'm going to summarize now for you. To summarize, it shows that the expectation of the students, the reason why they came to study language at university, living away from home, the year abroad, and making new friends, when as soon as they come here, becomes one of their biggest concern and worries. So this suggests that the importance of providing the right support at the right time, giving them the ability to adapt, to adjust to new stresses, and facilitate their journey throughout university. So now I will pass on to Theresa, who will talk about the action plan and the way forward.
So to conclude, I've split the action plan into 2 different areas, and one of the biggest outcomes that we've got so far is the report that we wrote that was circulated internally in Cardiff University earlier this year. And if you haven't seen that report and would like to, just give me a shout and I'll be able to send that through. We also would like to work on a student-generated guide to graduation, which was one of the suggestions from Anna and Sophie, so that we can send that out not just to new students but to prospective students as well. We want to be able to create greater signposting for the university-wide resources, and we also want to be able to support personal tutors to be asking the right questions of students when they meet them. First of all, when they're starting in higher education, and based on what we found out, so looking at the key notions like independent study, mental health and well-being, academic skills and time management. Another one of the outcomes, and one that is here today is a huge outcome of the project, to be able to have in a room together so many different people from so many different parts of the university and different organisations to talk about this key issue is one of the key outcomes as well of the project. We, going forward as a school, we are going to be supported by a working group of ex-officio typists, so Director of Learning and Teaching, Assessment Feedback, Disability Lead, etc. We do want this not to be a one-off. We would love for this to be something that carries on, that we have conversations like this across educational sectors more often to discuss transition. We also want to be able to work within Cardiff University to talk more with the Centre for Student Life, with Student Future, Disability Services, widening participation, wellbeing, and also with the SU, because there are a lot of things that happen within the student union that we're not necessarily part of and that we don't necessarily have a way to promote. So, for example, networks that already exist that our students may not know about when they first arrive at the university. We do, as I said, want this not to be the end but the start of something, working collaboratively across the university and with schools and colleges. And we would love, and this is something that Anne and Sophie felt very strongly about as well, for there to be facilitation of more student-led events, because there's a little bit of kind of questionnaire fatigue, workshop fatigue that goes on amongst students, and if these events are actually created for students by students, then there might be more response and buy-in from students themselves. So thank you so much for coming today, and thank you so much for listening. This is who we are, and if you have any questions about what we've been doing over the last year and a half, we'd be delighted to discuss them.